Okay, part two, Andy, part two of our Marketing 101 conversation. Um, Everything that you gave to us last time was super helpful, lots of great feedback on that. So I want to pick up where we left off last time. So our last conversation was a lot about how to identify who your ideal client is, who your audience is, what you want to be offering to those people, what problems you want to solve, and thinking about where that community of people consume social media. What platforms are they on? So starting to look around to where your people hang out. So right. I want to just pick up from there into like next steps. So once you've identified those like key points, what is the next step in terms of online marketing and
right.
getting your brand out there?
Yeah, well, so you sort of brushed on it just a second ago, and we talked a little bit about it last time. But one thing I think is really, really important and is very, very commonly overlooked is the idea of the offer. What are you really offering? What is the product that a person can exchange, can transact with you for? Exchange value for value, right? And the big problem I see with this happening is trainers tend to start with this assumption that the offer is, well, I will stand next to them while they work out for 45 minutes to an hour.
Or provide some sort of one-on-one kind of coaching experience.
Right, add some kind of value to that, of course, but the assumption is that the offer is physical presence or online presence while person performs exercise. Or the offer is create program and give feedback, right? And so what I would suggest is that is a really, really weak offer and also not a differentiated offer, because this is an offer that's in plentiful supply. It's a commoditized offer, and you're going to be competing in basically a race to the bottom with every other trainer in the world out there if this is the only thing that you can present to people. So there's a whole science there's many sciences of selling and of generating revenue in business, right? One of the things that's come out in the last few years is called CRO, conversion rate optimization. And this is a thing that when we're online, especially, we talk about this, where the conversion rate is the number of people who take the desired action out of the number of people who are presented with the possibility to take that action, right? It's a ratio of buyers to non-buyers, for example, in a sample. And so we do a lot of things in the digital world, like Google was famous. They tested 40-something different shades of blue for the search button to see which one got the most clicks, right? And if you have all the traffic that Google gets, then that is actually viable. GMB, sometimes what we do is we'll test like which headline in an email, which subject line gets the most opens, right? That's another very simple form of A/B testing, which is conversion rate optimization. What you're trying to do is just, when you talk to people and tell people what you do, you want to get the highest percentage of the right people to take you up on your offer, right? So there's all of these tactics and tricks. I swear I'm going somewhere with this. So like, don't get lost.
I believe you.
Like, you don't need to worry about the digital thing or be like, oh, that doesn't apply to me. What's really important, I've done a lot of testing. And one of the things that I found a lot is that you can tweak things here and there, like tweak your wording, tweak the way your landing page is set up or whatever. And you might get more people to sign up here or there, but you don't always increase the number of people who buy total, right? You might just move where the transaction happens in like time or which page. What I'm getting at though is that a lot of times the thing that you need to change most is the offer itself. And I think especially for trainers where there's a very strong assumption, they're kind of like an a priori what the offer is, you really need to examine, is that the correct offer for you, your brand, your target, and your ability to deliver on in a price range that makes sense. I could probably put some more fingers up, but
that's good. Five's good.
But that's enough. It's enough, right? So I want to look a little bit about offer. So yes, you are training people, right? So that does include a certain amount of exercise instruction, programming, giving feedback, that sort of thing, whether it's in person or online or whatever. But the thing that you need to think about is not just the physical action, but what is the person trying to get out of this? And we talked a little bit about this in terms of understanding your psychographics of your target market before, and knowing that they have different values that are important to them when they're making these choices. But they also have different things that they're willing to pay more for. So GMB, right? We sell these programs, and like people want to know, how many weeks is a program? How many videos do I get? How many videos do I get? What does that matter? Like we could take a 60-minute video and we could break it into 61-minute videos and say, you're getting 60 videos. And people are like, oh my God, that's amazing. 60 videos? Some people think like that. And what I'm getting at is different people think in different ways because they are comparing you against different things, right? So what is the value metric of your target market's psychographic kind of profile? And it starts to sound really complicated, but the thing is, you need to understand, what people want to get out of it. How do they measure the actions you're taking and how close they get, how those actions stack up towards getting them to their desired outcome? For example, let's say that you have a goal to get really knowledgeable about butterflies this year. By the end of 2020, you're going to know everything there is to know as a layperson about butterflies. You want to become a butterfly expert. So how can you do this? Well, you know that there's a few things you can do. One is you can find out who the butterfly experts are and begin learning from them. And the other thing is you can begin studying materials that are available to you. For example, books, right? So you might identify what are the most important, the foundational texts in butterflies that are available to you. And you would say, oh, well, there's 11 books. Okay, well, now I'm going to say, okay, I have how many months left in a year? I don't even know. I'm bad at math. But divide that number of months by 11 now. And you know that you need to read, say, 1.5 books a month. So your metric isn't getting better at butterflies. You can't measure that. But you know that if you are reading these books, and let's say you devote 30 minutes a day to reading a foundational text about butterflies for the rest of the year, you will know more than most of the Earth's population about butterflies very easily. So the thing you're measuring, the actual metric, is going to be time reading. That's not your goal, right? So I think trainers get this, right? We set goals and we do things, we take actions that get us to the goal. So what you need to be thinking about is, what are the actions that your client is measuring? It's probably not sessions. It's probably not minutes. It's probably not reps. All right? They may be looking at those things on paper, but a client that wants to work with you instead of doing an online program because they need feedback, guess what they're measuring? How many times you correct them. Maybe not consciously, but how they're going to think, how they're going to decide whether or not you're doing your job or whether or not you're a good coach is how many times you correct them, right? So this is the value metric, and this is part of the offer that you really need to look into. You're not going to tell people, I will give you 14 corrections for $200. That's because they don't know this. But you need to know that you're actually building your session. Maybe you're actually selling a session, but when you talk about this session, you need to tell them that, I'm going to make form corrections. I'm going to make sure you're doing everything right. I'm going to give you, I'm not going to give you too much information because I know that that's overwhelming, right? It's not going to be like reading a blog post about the perfect squat. It's going to be me telling you exactly the thing you need to think about. So this is about the way you present stuff, but you're also going to know for yourself that you need to be giving a certain average number of corrections to be above average or to compare with other people. So when somebody asks, well, what makes you better than this coach over here, right? Well, this guy's really good at this, but what I try to make sure is that I am I'm going to improve this about your squat. I'm going to improve this about your shoulder mobility. And I'm going to make sure that you always do this the right way, which people screw up a lot, right? You've already given them 3 very specific things that you're going to fix that are going to stack up towards their goal. And I'm not saying this is the thing for you, but figure out what are those actions that you can emphasize so that when you talk about your offer, you're not just saying, coaching, $200 a month, because that doesn't mean anything, right? You have to say, okay, this is a $200 a month relationship, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be every Sunday sending you a new program with 2 videos that explain the new exercises for you. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to check your first training report, and I'm going to give you feedback that you're going to use in your second workout. And we're going to keep going like this. Every 2 weeks, we're going to get on the phone, and I'm going to talk you through things for a few minutes to just make sure that you are feeling good about everything. Whatever those things are, you can explain your offer in more granular detail than just coaching or just a session, and you can make sure that you're emphasizing the points that that person wants to be measuring you on.
This reminds me of Edith Maria, one of our GMB trainers who I interviewed previously. She said that one of the things that got her the most signups or responses for an online pitch that she did, like an offer that she made online, was when she just made a video of herself talking about what doing the program looked like, what it actually meant to sign up for this, like walking them through like all the steps of what working with her online meant. And she really broke it down. And I think that most of us trainers take for granted that people know what we mean when we say things. Right. And that there's still, and that, you know, it's obvious to us, like, of course we're going to give form corrections. Of course we're going to give feedback. Of course we're going to like do this stuff. But unfortunately that's not the case with every personal trainer. And so a lot of people don't assume that's what we're necessarily going to do. And what
exactly. So, I mean, some examples are form corrections. They might be video instruction before your session. They might be a spreadsheet for tracking. They might be a weekly 10-minute conversation to just get their head straight. They might be forwarding of articles that help them understand and learn more about stuff. They might be any number of things that people feel like are necessary or valuable bonuses to the relationship. And you can pick any or multiple of these things and use them as value proxies to demonstrate the value of your coaching, right? And that's really helpful for people. I think Edith's example is great. When I used to study copywriting, what you do is you take old copy that's good copy, like we call them swipe files of like famous direct response sales letters and things like that, famous sales pages or famous ads, and you just copy them out longhand many times. Like I used to spend 2 hours a day writing out ads that were proven, and what that does is it drills a language into your head. And so there was a great one from I can't remember what it was selling, but I wrote this so many times. It was people, they would go through the phone book and find everyone whose name was, say, Rogers, and they would send them this letter that was like, oh, hey, my name is also Rogers, and I was looking into our Scottish ancestry. I don't know if Rogers is Scottish, I'm just making this up. And I found this, and we went there, and we met the caretaker of the old castle, and we have this authentic Rogers coat of arms, and I really wanted one, so I printed up 100 of them because that was the minimum, and now I have 99 of these gold inlaid Rogers coat of arms framed, and I went to the phone book, and I'm offering one to you for the cost that I had to pay for it, which is $39. And so, and they could do this with every name in the phone book, of course. Brilliant business. It costs like $1 to print these things. So, but anyway, you get down to the end and it does exactly what you were saying. It says, okay, so when you send me the check for $39, my wife and I are going to take the coat of arms out of the frame because we don't want it to break. We're going to put it into a tube that's going to protect it. And it's going to have a sheet of wax paper over the top to make sure that none of the ink or gold foil rubs off anywhere that we don't want it to, right? We're going to put that, we're going to protect it. Then we're going to wrap the glass of the frame separately so that it's protected and pack that flat with a couple of magazines in between. Now, what we're going to do, Barbara's got her bridge game on Tuesdays. So on Wednesday, we're going to take all the orders that we have over the last few days. We're going to take those to the post office. And if you're within the tri-state area, you should be getting yours within 2 days. If you're a little further away, it might be up to 5 days, depending on postal service. It explains in detail, like these completely fictitious details. There was another one. It's like, oh, when you call this number, my assistant Barbara is going to pick up, and she's going to ask you for your shipping address and et cetera. And then we're going to do this. And these details, it's so funny. Like, we know what it's like to go through this process, but your people might not. If it's their first time hiring a coach, they don't know. Should they show up to the gym already changed? Like, or how are you going to assess them?
What should they wear? Yeah,
what
totally.
should they wear? Do they need a water bottle, or do you have water there? Do they need a towel? Like, these are things that people worry about. Like, should I be warmed up? Is it okay to eat first?
Right.
All of this stuff.
And if people have that many questions about training in person, training online is like a whole different animal of unknown for people.
Yeah. And so it's not a matter of just giving them information after they purchase. It's a matter of being so specific before they purchase that they know you've got your shit together, and that they don't have to worry post-purchase, are they going to be uncertain? Take the uncertainty out of it. That removes the friction on the front end of the transaction and makes them a lot more confident about choosing you, right? So that's a lot of stuff about offer and the way the offer is presented. Many, many times, going back to conversion, you can do all these things that will like tweak the conversion rate here and there. But so many times the problem is the offer. Either the offer isn't very good, or the offer isn't very compelling, or the prospect doesn't understand the offer. Those are the things that are most common to fall down. So yes, what is the next thing you should do is definitely just revisit your offer. Make sure you understand really what you're offering, and not just coaching or training or something like that. And then be able to present that to people, because they don't know what those words really entail.
Right. Okay, that's super helpful. And then I want to talk about this kind of, so you have your audience, you know where they are, you know who they are. You have your offer, you know what's included, you figure that out, you've really ironed out the details. Okay, so there's like this bridge in between those two things of like, how do you sell to somebody online? And something that I've learned with all of like the work I've done around business development and marketing and working for GMB and seeing how we market is there's a big part of that that's relationship building. Like, people have to trust you. They have to like build that relationship with you and get to know you. And I feel that trainers are really good at doing that in the gym. Like, we know how to talk to people, even if they're not our clients. We know how to like say hi. Oh, do you need help with that? I can show you how to use that piece of equipment. Sure, I can stretch you out for 5 minutes. No problem. Like, we know how to do that. But then how do we build those relationships in the online world? Because we need to do the same thing that we do in the gym, but we need to do it online.
Right. And I think that this partly goes back to what we discussed last time about branding, is that you seed a lot of this stuff through subtlety, right? If someone is doing a video and they're wearing a Wolfpack shirt, and I see a lot of like obscure copywriting books, like if I see like, like some Eugene Schwartz books behind you on the background or some shit, I would be like, all right, these are my people. All right, I trust this person. And I'm going to be a lot more likely to get in touch. So there's that. But then the other thing is, a lot of it comes down to medium. So how are you finding these people, right? Like we briefly talked about TikTok last time. And, I should hasten to add that TikTok itself is not the point. It's just being able to develop fluency in the communities where your people are, right? So if that means like getting really good at like commenting on Reddit, more power to you, because I can't deal with it. But whatever that is, right? And so depending on the format, you may have different opportunities. Like Rose brought up that, we put content for GMB out on like Facebook, YouTube, things like that, right? Instagram, and people comment on there, right? And yes, there are power laws on the internet, and the majority of comments are probably not very good, but many of them are, and we respond to most of them, right? So it's just one way of just letting people, when people do initiate contact with you, uh, make sure that you follow up with that. Don't let it just lie there, right? You will sometimes get people that they'll post comments and stuff, or send you messages, or however they communicate in whatever platform, right? When you'll get communication from people, and you'll be like, what the? No, what? And sometimes you need to get good at knowing the difference between when someone has crossed a line, or they are just not able to communicate well, or maybe they're responding to you at a fucking traffic light, which they should be ashamed of themselves for texting while driving.
But it happens.
But it happens. So you need to understand too that, okay, maybe this comment used you instead of YOU and had like no punctuation, and it's hard for me not to judge somebody who writes that way, but I understand maybe they're in the checkout line. And so I will still try to give them a good response anyway. So that's one thing, is just starting by being helpful, especially to people who do contact you. Just be helpful. You don't always have to be super nice. You don't have to, if somebody replies with like, or if somebody comments with like 4 words, you don't have to write a paragraph and reply. You know, but just try to be helpful. I think that people want that a lot. But then there's everyone else that is not going out of their way to contact you. And what do? Well, again, I think a lot of this depends on platform, but there's a phrase we have in marketing called digital sharecropping. So this is what happens when for example, YouTube or Facebook or these platforms start getting really big, and people think, wow, I don't need my own website. I can reach far more people on Facebook. This happened with Medium.com and all of these writers, and then Medium changed their rules, and people don't have access to their own audiences, right? So sharecropping is basically you get a portion of what you grow, but you don't own the land and you don't own the produce, right? This is what many influencers are building right now. Many YouTubers, you know, get very upset when YouTube changes the monetization rules and they don't have access to their ad revenue anymore, or as much of it, or they're not shown on the homepage feed or something, or some change happens. And this is what happens when you're a sharecropper. So one thing I want to make sure is that it's important that you own your audience. And this sounds like a really important thing when you are talking about a YouTuber with millions of followers. And you think, well, of course you would want, like, if you lost access to millions of followers, you'd be screwed, right? But I've only got 100 followers on Instagram. It's not a big deal yet. It is a big deal. Every person I've ever spoken to in business, not a single one has ever said, I wish I had waited longer to start building a list of leads.
Right, totally.
I have never heard that shit, because it is bullshit, and it's just not the case. You always want to be finding some other way to contact people. Now, in my world, that's usually email. We try to get people onto our website, get them to sign up for our email list, and we send them targeted offers and newsletters, and I write pretty okay emails, and people like them, and they build that relationship with us through the email and through our responses. Like, I send out emails that I've written, some of them years ago, but they're very genuine and very good. People respond. Rose is one of the people that then replies to those responses. And people are like, wow, GMB is really great, and they're personal and helpful. But you can do this individually too. You don't need separate people to do this, you know, but getting people onto an email list so that we can send them emails, because everyone has email. Not everyone opens all your emails. And some people don't like getting emails, but they still sign up for stuff. It's weird. But on average, you have now the ability at your timing, at a time of your choosing, when you have a good offer and when you are looking for new clients, you can choose, I am going to email people now. I will contact people now at the time I need clients and make an offer to them. You have that ability if you own the relationship. YouTube used to let you message just about any YouTube user. That is not the case anymore. People who were counting on that ability to PM people through YouTube's interface years ago, some of those people got screwed. So that's why I personally like email, but I know there are other people that do really, really well getting people's phone numbers and texting, you know? And this is pretty simple to do. You can go, for example, I don't know the degree to which this is fully possible, but I guarantee some version of what of the scenario I'm about to describe is possible. Okay, so if the details don't work, or if they change the rules and the details change, there's a way, I swear. So let's say you put up a video on Instagram and it's perfect and great and a lot of people see it. Well, you can go in and you can see who has liked your video. You could go and just follow them back if they have a non-private account. And that's, you know, sometimes a good step towards like being a good citizen and building a relationship. Or you could go and be like, you know, you can send them a message if they have their DMs open. You're like, oh, hey, thanks for liking my video. You don't have to, you're not trying to say, thanks for liking my video. Please sign up for my 10-day course and blah, blah. Don't,
right.
Here's a coupon.
Don't sell.
That's too much. And that feels really canned, right? They know you copied and pasted that. We just be like, hey, thanks for liking my video. And then if they reply, cool. If they don't, that's fine. You don't have to worry about it. But if they reply, be like, yeah, if there's anything, you need help with, or, what video should I do next time? That's another really good one to ask. And you'll find some people will be like, yeah, do a video of thing you don't really do. Well, that person's not a lead for you.
Right.
Right? But if it's like, oh, I'd love it if you did a video on this thing that is a good fit for what you do. Well, now this person is like jumped up the lead queue because the thing they really want is something you're really good at and can offer. So like when somebody likes or comments, you can just send them a DM, like real casual, right? And maybe if they reply, you can be like, oh, great, I actually have something like that, or I can totally help you with that. And that's when you can say, I also have a little email list where every couple weeks I send people links to my newest stuff so you don't miss anything. Or whatever, right? But you need to find some way that you can own that relationship, or you can get their text or be like, yeah, I have this text group or this Facebook Messenger group or something like that. And, just be like, hey, can I invite you to this thing? And not everyone will want to take it, but some people will. And just because someone doesn't does not mean that they aren't a good lead. It just means that maybe they don't like that form of communication. So, I mean, we have people on our email list for years that don't even open emails anymore that suddenly will pop up and buy like 3 or 4 programs. They'll be like, I finished my back rehab, quit CrossFit. My child is now in elementary school. I'm ready to get started. You're like, great.
I just answered one of those emails today where somebody's like, oh, I've been following you guys for 5 or 6 years. I've never bought anything, but it's time now. Like the
time is finally right. And people will do that. And they'll be like, I don't personally like email. I send 500,000 emails a month, more than that. I don't like getting emails, right? I don't really enjoy it. But so I won't sign up for email lists, but I find other ways to follow the people I'm interested in. So if somebody doesn't join like an email list or something, or a text list, don't assume that they're not interested, but just give them the option. The thing is you're not going to get 100% of your like audience onto your own list, wherever that is, but you want to have some sort of list. Having a list is important. The movie Glengarry Glen Ross, right? With the always be closing, coffee is for closers, right? The whole crux of the movie is about getting those damn leads, right? That stack of leads. Like the leads are important. Having that list of qualified leads means that you are in control of your pipeline and your ability to get new clients, right? It doesn't mean that you're at the mercy of the platform or the pandemic or whatever. Having those leads is really, really helpful. So like Rose mentioned, like the importance of having something that you take that relationship and you can control part of that is absolutely huge. You need to do that. And so there's a lot of ways you can do that, but a lot of it just starts with being helpful to people on these platforms where they live, starting to eventually, interact with more people, not necessarily as a coach or as a business, but just be interacting. People can see you interacting with other people. They know.
Right.
They know you're friendly. And then start creating content, instructional content, right? Then you start showing and teaching a little bit more. Then you start showing that you're coaching more. Then you start actually, now you don't want to just go full on, now I'm a coach, right? But you're always, granted, you're already a coach, but I'm just saying you don't want to always be that. You want to be interacting, you want to be yourself, you want to be helpful, and then you want part of that stuff to be teaching. You don't want to always be teaching all the time, because people can't keep up with everything you teach, right? They need time to just keep working on the same stuff, to stew on it, and to then see you be a human, right?
Right. Totally.
And then, you want to transfer that to your own owned list somewhere too. Those are the main things.
So I just wanted to add a couple of things that for people who might not think of these things. One thing that really hit home for me when I started thinking about marketing and building a list and all of that is that I've exchanged emails with a lot of people who didn't buy right away. People reached out to me, I'm interested, how does it work with you? We send some back and forths. Ultimately, it's not going to work out. And was horrible. And I would just kind of drop those emails. And that I feel was one of the biggest mistakes. As trainers, we think only of the people who buy from us, only the people who really follow up and follow through and show up and buy something do we think of as our people. But there are so many other people that reach out to us, maybe ask a few questions, maybe train for a short time and then drop off. All of those people should be part of your email list. Those are great people to continue to kind of give information to and reach out to. And you're the trainer on their mind then when they do need something. Right. The other thing that I was going to mention is that I feel some trainers are email, what do you mean? How do I do that? What are all the nuts and bolts of that? And I often say that a really great place to start is with something simple like Mailchimp, because you can store email addresses and it's free for up to 2,000 emails or something like that. Yeah. And it integrate with most websites and platforms and things like that. And it's a great place to store stuff. I don't know if you have any other tips on that.
Mailchimp or Convertkit both have free plans and have a lot of features that are really useful. There's also a newer one called SendFox, which if you have very low stakes sending, which I think applies to most people we're talking about here, is actually, it's a flat fee, I think $50, and you can send as much email as most trainers will ever actually need. Now, it will send it slowly, which is fine. You're not in a rush most of the time. And it will say sent by SendFox, which any free thing will too. And you can pay for plans that will let you increase the speed and take the SendFox burning off like that later on if you find it's really important. But if I were to start out now for just casual, it's not absolutely free, but it's one payment forever and has and it's really easy to use. So I would probably do that, but also that Mailchimp Convertkit, very, very good. Mailchimp Atlanta Convertkit, my friend Nathan made. Woo! Right so and SendFox Noah is the guy that I kind of know that made that. So anyway, mostly these are good people making these things too, and they're easy to do. And so then people say, well, what the hell do I write emails about?
That was going to be my next point.
Oh God.
Topic.
It's so hard. It's so hard because you've got nothing to say, right? How do you even come up with a thing to teach people? This is a problem you guys all have solved, right? I mean, you coach people for a living, don't you? You know what to say. Say that shit in text. You don't need graphics. You don't need any of these fancy features. If you sign up for the GMB email list, you'll see that 100% of the emails are plain text.
And short. A lot of our emails aren't that long.
And most of them are very short.
So something that I think would be helpful to talk about is how to tie in your, like, the audience that you want to be working with.
Mm-hmm.
How can we think about those people in terms of what we write about? Because, you know, it's one thing that okay, like, say I have my audience, I know who my person is, but, you know, and then I'm just maybe sending out some emails that are just about like a workshop I took or like some information I got. But how can we like make it relevant to that like audience? Like we hear the term education-based marketing a lot. I feel like GMB does really good at that. So how can we think about like that in terms of our email? Like, how can we think about like what specifically like we're doing and who we're talking to in our emails?
So there's a few things. One you hit on is education. I mean, we're teachers, right? We're coaches and teachers. Teaching is what we do. So you're educating people, and especially if you're trying to educate people about what makes you able to teach them well and help them achieve their goals. Well, you took courses and stuff in that, right? Which courses did you take? Why? How do those specific courses help you train their people better? And you wouldn't necessarily phrase it that way. Like, you wouldn't be like, well, welcome to my email. I've taken this certification and this one, and here are the 3 reasons why I am a CSCS, and here are the 2 reasons why I like kettlebells. Like, nobody cares about that at all. But you can take, for example, if you coach Strong First, right? And you might say, like, you know, one of the most powerful things that I've learned that's kind of like a sort of under the radar technique that I've learned in my years of coaching and training is this idea from the creator of Strong First, from Pavel, called irradiation of muscle tension, right? And what this thing happens, it sounds so simple, but it makes such a big difference in your training. You know, if you're doing a kettlebell swing or something, just grip the shit out of the handle, and it recruits more muscle and it changes this, right? And that's an example. I'm not necessarily endorsing this. I'm saying it's an example of a thing you might write. Okay? It works.
Right. No. Yeah.
It may not always be the right thing to do, but this is a thing you take one principle, one concept, you write about that, and you explain why it's valuable, some things you've gotten out of it, some things your clients have gotten out of it, and be like, hey, you know, try gripping a little tighter on the bar. If you're training on your own or training with another trainer, try gripping a little tighter on the bar and see it over the next few days and see if that changes anything for you. If you got any questions about it, just hit reply and let me know. I'll be happy to walk you through it.
Okay, so 2 things that I just want to stop and point out for trainers right now is that 1, Andy is really good at talking like he's having a conversation with you in email. And I feel like that's awesome. He also tells stories. Like you have some storytelling that goes on in your emails that also is like very easy to connect with. And the third thing is that you always say in your emails, hit reply and let us know what's going on. Do you have a question?
Every damn time.
And it's mind blowing how many people take you up on that.
Yeah. So there's a few things. Like, so the first 2 of those come 100% from the time I spent learning copywriting. If you're trying to learn how to write copy, there's no substitute for mimicking good copywriting. And this can be anything. This can be writing out old sales letters like I did. It can be subscribing to 20 of the best email newsletters you can find and printing them out and reading them offline and looking for similarities in structure. This is what several well-known Val, I can't remember her last name, Andre Chaperon, Joanna Weeb, have all made courses on basically doing that. So this is copywriting, right? You learn what's out there and you can develop these abilities of telling a story, of structuring things, of being conversational. The other one, hitting reply, this comes 100% out of the fact that in the early days of email marketing, you would get these people blasting stuff out. And this was back when spam was more of a problem, or, well, it's still a problem, but when it was more Wild West days.
Right.
Interesting story. I actually know 2 guys that worked for the dude who invented spam. We'll get into that someday, maybe.
Okay.
It's very profitable. So the reply thing is nobody was all of these emails were like, go buy this, go buy that, go buy that. Just pitching. And if you replied, there was nobody there to like, nobody was checking the replies to this stuff. You know, at best you might get an auto response that said, if you have a customer support question, please go to our help page or something like that. And you still get emails today from lots of companies that they're from like, no reply at Amazon.com.
Right.
Fuck you, Jeff Bezos.
Totally.
No,
how do you get in touch with a real person? How do you get in touch with a real
emailing
person?
me? Right? No, that's such bullshit. And so, you know, a lot of companies, their email address is like info@beachbody.com or something like that. Customer support at beachbody.com. Who wants to email that? Our email address is hi@gmb.io. Who do you want to email? Customer support at, info at? You don't want fucking info. You want help, right? So our email address is hi@, and we tell people reply. And what happens when they reply? Not everyone does, you know, and some are complaints. Fine, right? But when someone replies to you, when they're replying to an informational email, you know what they're doing? They are establishing a student-teacher relationship with you. Kind of the relationship you would like to build a commercial relationship on top of. God, this is so good. This is what one of my mentors was, a big email marketer, and one of the things I learned from him is that if you can get people to reply to your emails, and even he would try to get people to accidentally reply. He never asked them to reply. He would just hope they replied. And so when I was working for him and writing emails, I one time was just like, hit reply, and like 1,000 people did, you know? And I realized then that it was a key thing. And so it's been part of like the GMB email mix since before we were GMB, right? Getting people to reply, because then they're asking a question and asking for our advice. And our advice can be good or bad, but they'll make a judgment on how good our advice is and how appropriate our advice is to them. And whatever it is, they're seeing us not as a peer or as a company or as a product anymore. They're seeing us as an advisor, as a teacher. And who do you want to give your money to, right? A peer? No, you don't pay a peer for advice. You don't pay someone who's on the path. You pay someone who's ahead of you, right? You pay an expert. And so this gives you the chance to be a personal expert to people. And then that is going to vastly increase the chances that they will want to give you money for your services.
Right. So the reply is always key. Asking for people to reply is really important.
Yes. You guys, you know, I'm just giving away all my secrets here, all of my advantages.
Okay, so one more question. Actually, I have two more questions. But before we wrap up, the one thing I have to ask is, so you're interacting with people, you're sending out emails that are really helpful and giving out information. When do you make an offer? How do you make an offer? How do you do that in a way that's not sleazy, that's not like overkill, that's not too pushy? Like, when is the right moment?
Yeah. Well, it depends a lot on the offer itself and the person, right? So what I am fairly expert at is selling, you know, one-time purchase online programs at GMB. That's most of what we do, right? So for us, what we found is, and this is through like just analyzing tons of data, is most purchases come within, so we have day zero purchases, which basically means people sign up and they buy something immediately, just because like they've already decided. So we filter those out. So then the second wave of purchases comes between days 3 and 5. This is when they've gotten maybe 2, possibly 3 emails from us. And we give them information, we introduce ourselves, and we'll say, you know, if you're ready to take the next step, here's all of our programs, right? Basically. And it's not even a hard pitch, but it's just saying, here's the stuff, here's what to do next. Because most people, that's when they're the most interested, right? You strike while the iron is hot. I hate some of these pithy sayings because they're you know, they don't recognize the humanity of the people you're talking to, but there's some truth into that. Okay. When people are at their most interested is when you want to make an offer. If someone has sent you a couple of questions about training, that's they're interested, you know? And so you don't necessarily jump right back with, here's how you can sign up right now for you know, whatever commitment. Like, don't go too hard into it. It's like, yeah, well, if you're interested in me coaching you, let me know and we can talk about, you know, more about your goals. And either they'll say, oh, that sounds great, or they'll be like, I'm not really ready for that yet, but could you help me with this? That's cool too, right? So then the next kind of hit of sales that we get when somebody signs up for our email list is between days like 12 to 15. And that's when we actually, for the first time, soft pitch a specific program. We again start with an educational thing, but then we also say, for most people that are discovering GMB and are intrigued with the kind of things that we're trying to teach, the best starting place is here. Click here to learn more about elements, et cetera, et cetera. And we find that kind of very light pitch, now that we've kind of taught them some things and set things up and said, you know, many people are wondering how to start. Here's how you start. Then that works really well for us. And then there's also the drop-off point when people sign up and their interest is piqued, and then their interest starts to decline. And over time, people like just stop opening emails, right? We found for us, like the big drop-off point is at day like 30 to 35, 38-ish. Like after a month or so, if somebody hasn't found something that they want to purchase from a company, then usually their interest has declined. It means that they're still looking elsewhere and they're probably shifting their attention somewhere else. It doesn't mean they're completely off the map, because like I said, years later, people will buy something. But typically, you have to think of it in terms of consumer behavior. When someone is out there searching for information, searching for a service or a product, or trying to find a solution to a problem, you know, if they see it, they're going to buy it, right? If they find something, and let's say they find 5 different possible solutions, and they're going to start researching them, looking at them, sign up to a couple email lists, read some articles, look at some videos, and be like, oh, this is the one, right? They're going to go on and buy it. So that's in like your first week kind of period, right? That like 3 to 5 days, or you know, maybe 2 weeks. If they have to shop around a little bit more, get some questions answered, then they're into that 12 to 15 day range. That's what happens then. But after that, they probably are not still deciding if it's a real problem they're trying to solve, if it's a real thing they want. So after that, it's going to drop off precipitously, because they're starting to look somewhere else. They're looking at a different solution. That's just that's consumer behavior and the way it works. So how do you know when the time is right? For us, the way we're selling things, we have some data to back this up. But a lot of it is really just starting to try to build relationships and notice keys and clues in people's communication and behavior. So you'll find that first, you just need to at some point say, hey, I coach people, right? They know that, you know, your Instagram handle is Coach Dan or whatever. People know that you call yourself a coach, but they don't know how you coach, where you coach, or what's available, or if you're taking new clients, right? So if they've hit you up twice for like advice on something, or commented a few times, and you've been in personal contact with DM or email or whatever, at some point you've got to say, and I say early on, because this is when their interest is probably peaked in the new relationship. Early on, you need to be like, hey, no pressure, but by the way, you know, I do coach people. I've got a couple of spots open. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know. We could go straight to that, or otherwise, like, let me know however else I can help you.
Okay, so question about that, because more trainers that I know are probably not going to be doing an email sequence, kind of like GMB does.
Yeah.
Where we're automated, and most trainers,
Sure.
that's going to be down the road if they want to go that route. But let's say a trainer is sending out an email every month, every 2 weeks, something like that. How often would you include something in an email about your services?
If you're sending an email only every month, every damn time.
Okay.
Because a month is long enough for someone to forget your ass.
what do you recommend in terms of email? Like how often?
Well, it depends on what you have to say. So for GMB, we create a lot of content. So we can email several times a week even. We don't really email that much, but we could conceivably, and people would still see it as fresh months and months into the future, right? So that's us. But it depends on, again, like what is that value metric of the offer, okay? If your relationship is going to be based on how many corrections you give them, be like, you know what, I send out an email, every week about a key point of a big lift, right? And you could rotate between like squat, bench, and dead, and say there's like 4 common mistakes. Well, there's 12 emails, right? And after 12 are up, just start repeating them. People aren't gonna care.
So that point right there, I feel like we need to stop and just like make that a big deal, because I feel like when I talk to trainers about their emailing, they're like, but I already said that, but I already did something on that.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
but that's okay, right?
So my partner Jarlo and I have this just ongoing discussion of you just have to iterate the same things again. We have articles that are old articles where we've said things and we still get questions. I'd love to see an article about this. And we'll say, well, have you seen this? They're like, yes, but I would like a new article about the same thing. People, so there's a few things. Not everyone will open your email. Not everyone who opens will read. Not everyone who reads will read all of it. Not everyone who reads all of it will remember. Not everyone who remembers will care. Doesn't matter. Thing is, if I am reading your email at a stoplight, you send me the same thing in a week, I won't remember that I've read it at a stoplight. I'm not saying that you should copy and paste verbatim every time, but definitely feel free to return to the same points, the same themes again and again and again. We have a lot of things we talk about at GMB, but the most important ones, there's like 4. And I hammer those points 1,000 times, right? So whether it's email or Facebook posts or Instagram posts or whatever, like don't feel like you have to constantly be like, here's the workout of the day. No, be like, all right, here's day 29 of me talking about why you really need to work on your ankle flexibility. It's fine. Hammer those points that are important to you, that represent the value metric people want to pay you for, that moves them closer to their goal, right? Talk about those again and again and again. And then it's really easy. Like if you're not communicating with them very frequently, then probably like if it's monthly or something, then every time you need to be like, by the way, I've got 2 coaching spots open. So if you want to get in, in the month of May, then let me know and we can start talking about it now. Or you might just say like at the end of every email, how many coaching spots you have open, or at the end of every email when your next workshop is. Like that's not a hard pitch, and you don't need to feel bad about that or ever apologize for it.
Great. Okay, that's really, really helpful, because I feel like trainers that I talk to about email get really stuck in their head about like what they should be writing about, because they're running out of ideas, and recycling content just slightly differently is totally cool. Everybody does it. So it's nice to hear that reiterated again. So this has been really helpful, and it's given me some ideas about like maybe doing another call talking about like how to write copy, or like how to, write in a way that people will be more likely to read, compelling storytelling, that sort of thing. So we'll leave that for another time, but let's end today with, I want you to talk about the 2 things that trainers could do next. So you kind of gave them 2 things last time. Hopefully they worked on their ideal client. They know who their audience is. They figured out where those people are. What are the 2 next things that they can do? Does that mean iron out their offers? Is it starting to build their list? Like, what are the 2 next things they should do?
Those are the 2 things.
Okay.
That's exactly it.
So figure out the offer.
Know what metric you are charging for, right? You don't necessarily have to tell leads or clients what the metric is, but know that you are focusing your offer on how many form corrections you give, or how many new tricks they will learn, or how many inches further they'll get in their pancake, right? Whatever it is, whatever you and they are going to agree to track results on. The second one is find some way to build your own database of leads, whether that be a literal database in Google Sheets that you collect manually, whether it be a CRM system. There's many good free CRMs that you can use, right? That might just include like Instagram handle and how many times you've contacted them. That's fine. Or it could be an email list in Mailchimp, Convertkit, or SendFox.
Can you explain the CRM software just so
a CRM
know what it
means
is?
Customer Relationship Manager, right? So this is a software that I think was pioneered by sales professionals to recreate the idea of a Rolodex. It's basically a list of people and ways to contact them. And some of them include things like how many times you've contacted them. You can tag them based on where they are in the lead funnel. So some of them get really, really crazy because they're made for like salesmen with, or saleswomen with, thousands of leads.
Right.
You don't need that, but some of these softwares have good mobile apps and are really easy to use. Like you could copy, you could long press and copy somebody's Instagram profile and then import it into there really easily and have a very simple to use way where you can track, here are all the people that have contacted me, and I can say, they know I've told them about my services, I've answered some questions, and this person has signed up for email, this person hasn't, stuff like that. And that way you're just building a list of people that, let's say you've had like you've got like 500 followers on Instagram now, and over the last like 6 months you haven't really had any products or services available for sale, but you have had DMs with maybe a couple hundred people, if you've been really active about contacting people and answering questions and replying to comments and things. So let's say now you have put together an offer, right? And you want to make sure that you get people who are interested on there. Well, of course you're going to make a post on Instagram that says, I've got the thing, right? But how do you know that the people that need to see it are going to see it? Well, if you've got this list of handles that these are the people that have contacted you and that you've already communicated with personally, you don't have to go through and try to search through your DMs in Instagram in the app, which is a pain in the ass. You can just go directly to those people's profiles and say, hey, by the way, if I started this thing, if you know anyone who might be a good fit for it, let me know.
Cool.
You can contact those people when you decide. That's the benefit.
Cool. Okay, great. So the two things that we can do are iron out our offers, know exactly what metric that we're selling, and then also figure out a way to start building our list.
Yep.
Sweet. This was awesome. This was super great. Thank you so much, Andy. And we talked a little bit before we jumped on this call about Andy being in and around to answer questions. So if you all have them, please, please, please comment and he will follow up.
I cannot guarantee you'll like the answers.
Noted. But we will appreciate that you are answering.
Okay, man.
All right. Thanks, Andy. Thank you so much.